Hey, Damon, how are you, my friend? Happy Monday to you, dude.
Kurt, this is awesome. You know why this week is awesome? I'm excited for every week. I'm excited to talk to Frank today. But you know what I'm really excited for this week, Kurt?
What's that?
Where are you going to be this weekend?
Well, let's see. I think I'm heading to the Great Northwest, going up to Alaska, and then I might sneak my way down to Seattle to see my buddy Damon. So we'll possibly, right? It's a definite. So Damon, we're gonna be in person this week. Absolutely can't wait. What a thrill!
Yeah,
We have an exciting week. It's man, what a great week to close out October. You've got
yeah,
World Series is all set. Football's in full blown. Congratulations to our friends in Philadelphia.
yeah,
Congratulations to our friends in Houston. But man, am I excited about our program today, man. We
yeah.
have an rock star. We have a true hero. This guy is super modest, super humble. He's not going to, but I'm going to go there anyway before he starts so we can do it without his blessing. But we have a hero here today. So Frank Pereira, Frank, a Navy veteran. Happy Monday. How are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Kurt. Thanks, Damon.
Hey, this is awesome. So you come to us from a dear friend of ours, Ron Higgs. We were just talking about Ron, and I tell you, like Ron, literally synonymous with the word integrity, humility, just an amazing, wonderful, dear friend of
Good
ours. And
person.
so, Frank, this is just an honor and privilege. And again, thank you for your service to our country. You've gone through the Naval Academy. Boy, that is the elite of the elite, and we thank you for your service. And just share a little bit. I have a question for you that I always kick off our program with. As a matter, I'm gonna do it anyway. We're gonna kick off the program with this question. Okay, young man, you're growing up on Long Island and you decide to pursue a career in the Navy. My question to you is, who was your hero growing up? Who was your hero or inspiration that led you to kicking off your young career in the U.S. Navy Academy?
I don't think it was anybody really in the Navy. It was really my grandparents who were immigrants to the United States, and my father and mother, all immigrants. And when I think about the hard things that we've done, uh, fleeing at the time, Europe was economically total disaster. They had nothing. They lived. If you go to my father's hometown, it's a dirt farm, and they went to America with nothing. And when they left, they thought they would never go back. And they somehow made it here. And my mother's father, who was a World War II veteran, merchant marine, stowed away on a ship to get away from the Franco regime, and ended up serving through the war. Got torpedoed 3 times, went in the water twice, and he's the reason I'm an American citizen. And that those values got instilled throughout my whole country. And I do appreciate the outreach to the military. To me, it was an honor to serve our country. In my family, both my brothers are Naval Academy grads behind me. And my daughter just graduated. She's a CB like John
Oh,
Wayne. And my nephew, we were going to go see him this weekend. He's there right now. He's a junior. So we have 5 of us, and then I've got a cousin that served in the Coast Guard and the Air Force. We got them across the board. So, and I think for me, it's giving back to the United States for everything this country has blessed us with. I do it over again 100 times.
yeah, I'll tell you, dude. What man? I don't know any better than this right here. So,
Yeah,
Frank,
yeah,
thank you, man, and God bless Grandma and Grandpa
yeah.
and everybody that came over. And just what an incredible story on how important immigration coming into the United States. What a great story on just wonderful success. You being first generation here, and took your career. And we're going to dig into like your superpowers and how you're helping companies, how you're helping manufacturers. So thank you for, and what grandma and grandpa's name? You said your grandparents. Let's hear some names.
So my grandfather, mother's side, who was ended up retiring as a chief engineer from United Fruit Company. His name was Ramon Bermudez,
Nice.
and his wife was Ahenia, and or Eugenia, right, in English.
Yep.
And my father's side is Frank, like me. I'm actually I know I'm the 7th Frank in a row.
Are you?
Wow.
Yeah, we're actually Franciscos. We're all Franciscos.
Francisco.
And I've gone back, according to my father, it's 12. I'm not really sure about that. But
Yeah.
and my son's name, by the way, is Francisco. So he is the 8th or the 13th, however you.
Well, congratulations. And real quick, mom and dad's names?
Frank and Mary.
Frank and Mary. So, hey, God bless mom and dad. And what an inspiration. So, all right, you go from Long Island, you go into the U.S. Naval Academy. Take us there, Frank. I want to hear 18, 19-year-old Frank. You're sharing a little bit before we went live about your time with our dear buddy, Ron Higgs. Ron was a roommate of yours, but just talk about your time serving our country and just like, from that experience, again, and we're going to take a deep dive into Coleman Consulting Group, your managing partner. I'm going to take a deep dive there, but just lay some of the foundation, like maybe, what got you going in this direction, maybe mentors or like who shined the light on you where you were like, man, I really see this as a great direction for my career.
Well, so the Navy was an amazing growing experience for me. I mean, I grew up, I was the first college student in my family. I had nobody really to help me figure out where to go to college. I got in really because I did well on SATs.
Nice.
I test very, very well. And so I got in this thing. I show up, Ron Higgs is my roommate, completely straightened out this little punk. Although, he probably gave me some bad influences too.
Right.
But it was an amazing 4 years. The best part about the Naval Academy is not the history. It's the people that go there. They're all like like I was, like, it sounds like you guys are committed to the United States, committed to making things right, to doing the right thing. Yeah. That was the best part of being there. It still is today. I was just on a text this morning, a group text, and we're talking about the Army Navy game coming up. And these are my best friends. The people that I literally went to war with. My wife laughs at me sometimes when I say that, but we literally went to a couple of wars. I mean, I was a Gulf War I vet. I can still remember when Saddam Hussein was our friend. That's how old I am. So, and then the service, my captain on the first ship I was on, Captain Lyons, who later retired as Admiral Lyons, next to my father, single greatest influence in my life.
Nice.
Really just no excuses. And no matter how much I'd say, hey, I need to, this isn't working, I need to do something different, he would go in and say, you can't make an excuse, you got to deliver. I don't care how tired you are, you have to deliver. And I learned a lot from him. Like I said, him, my father, and then the second in command there, the executive officer, who also taught me you got to have a little fun, you got to have a little humanity. It's not just deliver out there. And then I actually got my job by answering an ad in the paper. I got out of the Navy, and I was actually going to Berkeley. I also have an MBA from the University of California, Berkeley, and I was doing all the interviewing. And I got a letter back from one of the big consulting companies. He handed a lot of letters, and most of them actually come back no. Well, I got one back that said, not only do you not have the skills, but you will never have the skills. So don't ever apply again. And my wife, we'd been married a little while, just comes. I walk in the door, she's screaming at me. She's, why are you doing this? You're not doing this any kind of interviews like this anymore. What you need to do is you need to get a job like my dad in the paper. And she opens up the Chronicle, San Francisco Chronicle, points at an ad. I add a paper, I got to listen to my wife. So I respond to it.
Right.
And a day later, I was hired by Dr. Richard Coleman. And I found a job that is really what I love doing, which is helping people at the same time, helping companies and doing something, changing the world. And I do love that part of what I do. I've been doing it for 30 years.
Man, so let's unpack a couple of things right there.
Yeah.
So I love the story because, so Dr. Coleman is, I'm assuming, founder of Coleman Consulting Group, and you apply for, you just apply for an ad, your wife, and I understand, I think you had a baby at the time, and just,
she was pregnant. She was 7 or 8 months pregnant and screaming at me because I didn't have a job and I was leaving the Navy.
And so you're just got like, I mean, you could go into healthcare, you could go into, you could go into anything at that point in time in your career, and you found the nugget. So many people are like trying to figure out what they want to do when they grow up in their 50s and 60s. At this stage, you strike a chord with Dr. Coleman, and here you are all these years later, so passionate about the company, you took it over. But talk about that experience with Dr. Coleman. What was it that resonated so well that you found, like, where you you really found your sweet spot in such an early part of your career?
Well, I think Dr. Coleman had this amazing idea to go ahead and bring health out to the workforces around the country. And really, he was a Stanford professor. He was one of the co-directors of the Stanford Sleep Clinic. And they started realizing that companies out there really had no idea how to work compared to how the human body worked. Right? If you think about schedules that we have today in coal mines or factories, they were designed in the, in the teens, whenever the light bulb came on and we could work 24/7, that's when they were designed. Nobody knew how the human body worked. So Richard and his couple of coworkers there, they opened up this clinic and they put a shingle out, an ad in the paper and say, hey, If you have problems staying awake when you're supposed to be awake or falling asleep when you're supposed to be asleep, come see us. We'll do a study on you. So the guy from the local Chevron refinery who's on the night shift shows up, and the doctors, they give him do a study. It takes a couple of days. They put these electrodes on his head and they figure out how long it takes him to fall asleep. And at the end, they realize the reason he's having a problem sleeping at night is because he's a night shift worker and he needs to go on steady day shift, right? So this is a Chevron refinery running 24/7.
Yeah.
But they're doctors. They know the answer. They send a little note. Dear supervisor, please place this guy on steady day shift, right?
Yeah.
So you could imagine what happens the next day. There's like 300 people show up at the clinic. We want one of those notes.
Yeah, right.
So Richard, being a smart guy, realizes a business here because companies do have to run 24/7, not just refineries, but think about hospitals, police departments, fire departments. People are, and we are definitely a 24/7 world, sort of driven by cost and demand, number of different reasons. And so, he started the business. And when they first started working, they realized, hey, we can bring these health ideas to people, but if people aren't happy with them, then they're going to lose sleep anyway. If it doesn't fit in with your family and social life, you're never going to sleep anyway. So they started surveying people. And then where I came in is I'm really the business driver. I came in and said, this is great. Doctors doing a study, surveying people, what's a CEO going to pay for that? Because what's the value in that, right? It's a feel good thing. But if we do these changes, we can save like $2 million in this company. And all of a sudden, CEOs around the world kind of woke up and said, what do you mean $2 million? And to this day, we typically deliver 6 to 22% of total labor budget savings. So you put in your total labor budget, health benefits and everything else, 6 to 22%. That's what we're seeing. And that number holds true everywhere. Why? Because most people aren't working the right schedule. That's what we find out. Most people it's like a round peg in a square hole and they can't change, right? What are you doing, right? If you operate, if you're in we're talking beer before, if you're in a malting house, right? A malting house operates basically, you have to malt the grain. It has to the sprouts start growing. That's how a malt house works. It's like a 40 or 50 hour schedule. Why are we thinking about the 24-hour day? We should be thinking about 50-hour days, right? If you have all this flexibility you need, we need to match that as opposed to sort of, we have to work 5 8-hour shifts. Okay, we got to work, 3 shifts or a week or whatever, right? People get caught up in the 8-hour day or even the 12-hour day why don't we figure out what makes sense and let's get people there and fine, we'll still pay them. But we'll, pay them what you need to. But more importantly, let's find out what fits in with their family and social life. And then we'll get something that makes sense. And unfortunately, we're so caught up with these different systems that we're in place. I tell people all the time, hey guys, you really know your schedule. I'll never know it better than you. You're experts in it. Unfortunately, it's the wrong one. So let's change it. And that's what we do.
That's a great line. Well, hey, we've got a couple of people dropping a note. Hello.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're here, drop a note. Let us know that you're out there. Give a big hello here to Frank. We have a Navy veteran. We have a war hero. And so Whitney drops a line. Wow, that's huge. And so, again, connect with Frank here on LinkedIn. So, Frank, I'm going to take a deeper dive there. We've got so much to uncover.
Yeah, there's a lot here.
We put on your website, we put out a promo for your speaking today, and you have a 3-circle strategy approach that is really powerful. Can you take us there as you're digging into? I feel like this is an appropriate time. Let's slide right into the Coleman Consulting Group 3-circle approach.
So we look at, if you're going to put in a schedule, you need to look at 3 things: the business needs, employee desires, and health and safety. And if you miss any one of those, or you just hit 2 of them, it's all going to fall apart, right? So I talked about health and safety when I was talking about Richard Coleman. We got to figure out what works for people. And really, there's 2 factors there. If you're working the night shift, are you in or out of sync? But there's another big factor, which is playing today, which is how many hours are you actually working? What are you stealing from the sleep bank? And through many of our clients, we've actually been able to put some real data on there. And I'll give you a big aha. If you're working more than 53 to 55 hours a week on average, right, and you say, I need more production, so I'm just going to work people harder, push them to 60, your amount you're going to put out is actually going to go down. I know those numbers sound crazy.
Yeah.
But we have companies there doing it today. I can't tell you how many companies I'm working at where they're doing 5 10s. That's 50 hours, or 5 12s. That's 60 hours. And by the way, we're going to work Saturday.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, you're over 52, 53 hours, the wheels are going to come off the wagon. Now, I'm not talking about 1 week, because 1 week we can all do 80 hours, right? Whatever. We've all done it. don't want to do it, we can do that. And I'm also not talking about that 55th hour. If you do it 5 weeks in a row or more, then when I show up on the 6th week, the first hour, I'm 10 to 15% less productive.
Right.
And
Yeah.
all those hours throughout the week. We find that, and people are like, they know that. Then why are we just jamming people? Well, we can't find anybody. Well, pushing them more hours, your numbers, your production actually goes down. I can't tell you how many times I have to teach people that. So health and safety matters. Business matters, right? If you're not meeting your demand, you got to change things, right? And just to say, well, we're going to push people harder, you got to figure out something different out there. And most people aren't willing to get outside the box. So you got to do an analysis on what makes sense. We also find there's a ton of idle time wasted throughout the day. So what I find is if this is your workforce and this is your workload, they're constantly going up and down. Right? They're constant, and we're trying to get as close as possible, but you'll never get exactly the right number of people for it's impossible, right? Because because I know that people are going to change, right? Even nuclear power plants says by law 10 people. Well, I know these guys get sick, they go on vacation, right? Some you can predict, some you can't. So this is constantly moving up and down. But most companies, they're going like this, right? So how do you, if you have a lot of flexibility, how do you build flexibility in? So we need to do that. But I think the most interesting and most important part of what we do is let's find out what people like and what they don't like. So we have the largest proctored database in the world. We've surveyed something like 350,000 people over the last 30 years, where we spent an hour and a half to 2 hours finding out what they like and what they don't like, which is great. It means I can tell you what the average is any place in the United States or by industry. But in the end, the average person has 2.4 kids, right? What's a 0.4 of a kid? I don't even know what that is, right? So what do we got to actually, instead of just using averages, let me ask them what they like. And what we're finding is generations are different, right? Even in our life, we know we're different, right? Things like overtime mattered for you as you go through your life. When you're young, you want to work as much overtime as possible. Typically, I just don't want to work Friday or Saturday night because it's, I got dates, right? Hopefully, I'm trying to get one. Right. But whatever. But I want to work as much because I'm indestructible. As you get older, things change. The baby's born. My wife goes, hey, we need more diapers. Go work some overtime. Maybe my kid gets a little older. Saturday is more important, so I can watch him play football or baseball or soccer or whatever. So how we look at our schedule changes throughout our lives. But we also know generations change differently. So you got stuff. I told you I'm an old veteran, right? So I've been doing this for 30 years. So I'm a little bit older. What I think about work is different than the person coming out of high school or the person coming out of college or my kids. They think about things differently, right? When I grew up in New York, we had the blue laws. Nothing happened on Sunday. Sunday was for church and go have dinner with mom. And you couldn't buy a beer after midnight on Saturday night. Today, I was working in a union shop in Milwaukee, and they said, really, Saturday's more important to us than Sunday. And it wasn't because the guy was irreligious, but Saturday's become the kid day. That's when the guy wants to go watch his kid play sports or whatever, or do things with the family. Sunday, he doesn't mind working. So the world has changed. There are so many places working 24/7. There are people that say, I don't mind working the weekend. If I can I'll work this weekend, can I get a 4-day break next week? Right. So we start to see a lot of that happen. So the best schedules are the ones where I can get something different. Damon can get something different. Kurt, of course, you can have one, they have to tie together, but what can we do to give ourselves the most options? And for me, I talk about schedules. Everybody starts saying, oh, this is about how long you work and what days you work. That's only part of it. I'll give you things that are a whole lot more important from an employee perspective. Flexibility. If I'm working Tuesday, but I need Tuesday off, can you and I trade?
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Even more important, predictability. The biggest disaster today in the United States, by far, is I can't tell you how many plants I've been to where the employees work Monday through Friday. They have this great schedule. They got every weekend off. But the reality is they don't know if they're working Saturday until Thursday night.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes Friday. But you see more Thursday because I'll tell you what, I'm going to look at the orders on Thursday. And guys, I'll tell you on Thursday if we're going to work Saturday. But if the orders are really low, I might tell you don't come to work Friday. So now you're living paycheck to paycheck, and I'm taking – so you could either have no money or the baseball game you were planning on going to with your kid, he's going alone because you got to come to work. How do people operate? How do they live like that? Yeah. And we can fix that just by understanding – the schedule is not really Monday to Friday. How much flexibility do you need? and then talking with people what makes sense. What do we want to do? That guy at Milwaukee, he'd say, hey, can I flex into Sunday instead of Saturday? He might be a one-off, and certainly that won't work in the Bible Belt. But one of our clients is Little Debbie's, McKee Foods, right? They make Little Debbie snacks. They're Seventh-day Adventists. Saturday is their holy day. They all work Sunday, but Seventh-day Adventists, they have the Sabbath, right? They don't work from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. And actually, now we have a schedule with them that moves with the daylight. So, because that day changes. Since it's sundown, it's not a time, it changes. And they can actually take advantage of that as they go through the summer and winter months.
Right.
Yeah. And,
I rambled. That was a long answer.
Well, you hit several things. When I was one of the, in our company years and years ago, when I was in injection molding, I was the first facility that went 24/7. And, we took a lot of time to study, because the other facilities, we had 2 or 3 other facilities that we would run the 5-day 24 for 5 days. And then you'd see that Saturday, that Sunday stuff. And we just needed capacity. I mean, we were getting outstripped capacity wise, and we knew 7 days. And we took a lot of time to really ask the people what worked well with them, what would they do. And the flexibility was the biggest thing. I mean, because it was not physical work for the large extent. So we could do 12-hour shifts, and they thought that was okay. But what they really liked is they could work, I forget what it was, a rotation of 3-day weeks and rotation of 4-day weeks. And if you needed to switch with somebody else, which you said flexibility was the biggest thing, I could just switch a day. We said, hey, as long as you guys cover what's got to go, who's working opposite of you, switch it. Just let us know. And that the flexibility is key in that, and allowing people to move around for family events, and that predictability, like you said. It didn't matter if I have to work Sundays for the next 3-4 weeks, because how a 7-day schedule works. I get 4 days off every week, or 3 days off every week, because of the way it's just, people get used to it and they love it.
I tell people all the time with extended shifts, and this is not just the weekend issue, but if you go to 12-hour shifts, by the way, number one thing people want, more days off. The only way you get more days off is to work more hours on the days you do work. That's why the 10 is kind of nice. The 12, some people see as oppressive. But if you take people to longer shifts and they get used to 180 days off a year, they're never going back.
No.
But I always caution managers, before we make the change, be prepared. I mean, this is what the employee's telling us, but there ain't no way going to come back, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, we got a couple of great comments here. So like Diane, again, Diane's a Philadelphia Phillies fan. So congratulations to Diane. But she's like, hey, been there. Whitney dropped a fascinating comment here. So frustrating. My husband works in healthcare and just got a text this morning telling him to come in early. Incredibly frustrating for all of us. So Frank, let's go there. So obviously, this during COVID, obviously no surprise, and it's not ended. Labor shortage, supply chain issues. It's putting pressure on everybody. Now you work with, my goodness, what a Cisco, Toyota, eBay, the U.S. Army, Exxon, General Mills. I mean, you're working with the who's who. You just mentioned like Little Debbie's. And, it's lunchtime where I'm at, so I'm getting a little hungry. But so let's talk. We target a lot of small manufacturers, and so they're perking up. We're like, they need to jump on it. Even if I only have 20, 30, 40 employees, I need to be exploiting and exposing myself to flexibility. You guys do such an amazing job at the Coleman Consulting Group. Just talk about any advice, suggestions for like the smaller manufacturers on what they could be doing for flexibility, or how do you advise some of your smaller clients?
Well, they have the same problems the larger clients do, right? The nice thing about it with a small manufacturer is you have the ability to change a little bit better, right? It's easier. It's a small family. In fact, I'm working with a chemical manufacturer right now, and they've got 50 people in the plant, right? And of those, I think in the manufacturing floor, it's more like 28, something like that on the manufacturing floor. And the nice thing about it is we have a great discussion, and it's a group meeting there where you can figure out what's going on, but they have all still the same problems and the same turnover problems, right? Which is they use temp to hires, and right now it seems like it's temp to fires. It's the same basic people. The temps are coming in and they're just cycling. So the meeting, I met with the employees for the first time 2 weeks ago, and I said, guys, because they're like, we got to fix this. Our problem is you can't get anybody on second shift. So as we're going through this process, tell me how you would fix it, right? And we don't want to just hear from the senior people. What actually, I didn't say this to them, but what I really want to hear from is the guy you just hired. I
Yeah.
just want to hear from that temp. Why is that temp not sticking? What's important to them? I do like the idea of having mixed solutions. We're seeing a lot of these today where, yeah, maybe there's a 24/7 schedule and maybe there's a 5-day schedule on top of each other. I have a big brewery, Miller Coors, one of their breweries, where they in the brewing department, half the people work 24/7 on 12s. The day shift's different than the night shift, and they're fixed shifts. And then a bunch of people work on Monday through Friday, the traditional 5 8-hour shifts. And when we first put it in, just the brewing department of about the 700 people, there's about 70 in the brewing department. We had to force the 2 most junior people onto the 12-hour night shift 7 days, and they weren't excited about it. Today, if you went to work there, the only way you're getting to that night shift is if you have 15 years experience. You want to get to the day shift, you have to have like 20 years experience, because those are the premium shifts, not just for the brewing department, for the entire site. Does that mean that senior most people work there? No, the union president works there, but I guess he's now moved over, but it was the union president. We did the change, works on that shift, but there are very senior people working Monday through Friday, but it's whatever you want. You can pick the choice, right? And of course, with the union, there's some, seniority rules. So you got to wait for an opening, whatever. But that's pretty traditional, a union or non-union site, right? But if you give people different choices, then they can fit something in that fits in with their family and social life, right? Which is exactly what will stop turnover. The other thing I find critical is we have a great success up in Massachusetts. There's a client of mine. They have it's a medical device plant near the beach, right? So they can hire people in the wintertime, but in the summertime, when demand goes up, everybody gets a job at the beach, right? Well, because it's better. I guess it's a better job. I don't know. So last year, they came to us with turnovers 200%. Imagine 200% turnover.
Wow.
I can remember like 10 years ago, companies going, I have 20% turnover. You got to save me. How can I have a company with 20% turnover? Right. Today, 20% turnover is like,
yeah.
So these guys are having 200% turnover. They can't keep people there. We go in and survey the people. Turns out the plant is mostly Dominican, right? Mostly Dominican. Go figure, in Massachusetts, right? And so we built a schedule that fit in with their culture, which had some fixed days off, but it went from a 5-day week to a 7-day week schedule. It was like, oh my God, we're listening to the employees. I know the senior management down in the Carolinas was like, what are you guys doing? Their corporate is calling up. You can't go to 7 days a week. You can't keep people there 5 days a week. You'll have nobody in the plant. Well, luckily we had a strong HR manager. We made the change. Today at that plant, this past summer, when everybody went to the beach, the only people they had to hire were replacements who retired, right? Once they filled in all the schedules, it's like a total win. And why? Because we listened to the people, we designed a schedule, and the things we fixed were exactly what you were talking about, Damon: flexibility, predictability. And the days off is important, but those 2 things mattered more than anything else.
When you can give somebody a schedule for 6 months and they know it, and they can give it to their family, and they can plan around it, plan vacations around it, plan doctor's appointments around it, plan their kids, conferences, everything, that it works. And then give them the flexibility if something comes up to schedule with, to swap with somebody else doing the same thing. Your life gets a lot easier.
Absolutely. And the other one I find is, overtime's a big thing for people. We talked about that earlier. Unfortunately, it's almost like it's like an addiction, right? It's like almost like smoking or something, right?
It's like crack, right? Need it.
It's like crack. Once you get on it, you can't get off it. There's no way, right? So one of the problems with overtime is we got the overtime hogs and we got the non-hogs, right? They're 2 different people. Like, I want overtime, you don't. Yeah. One of the problems with most plants, one of the ConAgra plants I was working at, everybody's working 5 days a week, 12 hours. And by the way, working half the Saturdays. And those Saturdays, we're all coming to work, guys. Well, if you guys don't want overtime, and I do, I'm happy, but you're not, right? So I can't work your overtime because I'm working at the same time. But we do in one of these rotating day off or some sort of opportunities where I get a Tuesday off and now I'm an overtime hog. I'll take that Tuesday and I'll work it. But you get the Tuesday off to do whatever you want. And if I work more overtime, you work less. So now I'm happier and you're happier. Again, building schedules that make sense for people and give people options.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's unpack that for a minute, Frank. Because man, this is a great. I haven't even looked at the clock. All right, so guys, if you're just joining us here, man, we're having a phenomenal conversation. We're here with Frank, Navy veteran, war hero. He is scheduling a superstar. In the 3 points, 3 circles, we're talking about the needs, desires, and safety. That's the sweet spot of creating scheduling success, Frank. So, what I'd like to take a deep dive in, whether one of the who's who Fortune 500 companies that you're working with, or that 50-person chemical company. Let's talk. I want to talk about either resistance or people that might not be on board. Okay. So I love what you're saying. Like, hey, we're going to take a deep dive. We're doing research. We're surveying. We're asking folks on the floor. I want to ask the person that just started last week and understanding their needs. So when you define that, hey, this seems like the best. How do you guys at Coleman handle it? Where either maybe C-level or the executives are pushing back or resistant, or the situation you just described, hey, 80% are happy with the schedule, but how do we put out the fire with the other 20 that just aren't happy with this change? I've been here for 30 years. I'm like doing things Monday through Friday. It's how my grandpa did it. It's how I did it. I'm not, how do you handle resistance, whether at the C-level, on the floor? Share that a little bit, if you would.
Okay, a couple different animals out there. And really, I think our biggest success has been change management. We're good with math and good with people, but change management is the hardest part of the process. So we don't spend 5 years doing change. It's got to be quick. You got to go with when the iron's hot. Typical change for us is about 12 weeks long, right? That involves serving employees, getting them involved. If you wait a year, people get lost. Right. And we do have some companies that long-term have strategies, but that's pretty rare. Most of the time it's pretty quick. Let's talk with the management side of the house. The number one, people ask me, why do projects fail? Management resolve, by far, number one reason. If the person who hires us to work in there is not committed to the change, this smoke screen, it's not going. And one of the things my job is to do is I go in there and I find out, is this a real change? Because if you just want us to be a smoke screen or to do something, I'm not interested, right? I'm only interested, and that means commitment to move forward. Sometimes it's a little harder if corporate says, hey, this worked great at this chemical plant, let's send you to the other one, and now that doesn't, and the team there feels like we're being foisted on them, right? That can be a hard change. You got to make sure that they understand it's their project and we've got to work with them. That's always a hard relationship to go ahead and build for the consulting team, to go ahead and make sure that find out what the problem is, and if you really believe these are problems, then I've got to get them to really believe we're going to change. Managers who want to tube the thing in the end, always a tough to kind of throw the project under the bus in the end, always a tough one. I'd throw union leadership in there, right? Union leadership often is very good at doing change. If they're not and they're open about it, at least that's good. But every once in a while, I get somebody. One of my first projects was a Goodyear tire plant where the vice president used our project to become president, and he threw his buddy under the bus. And today that plant's closed. A lot of it was because of that union, and a lot of it because of that guy. So I'm not going to say any names, but it was unbelievable to watch that happen. From an employee perspective, not everybody's going to get what they like, right? You think about, when Ronald Reagan won the landslide, did he get like 60%? Right. That means 40% were unhappy. I mean, every once in a while, get a project 92%, voted for the solution at the end. That's great. And we spend a lot of time getting to it, because we don't just say, here's A and here's B. They actually build A and they build B, and then they choose between the two. Right. And I've been in plants where people have buttons, we want this one, and we want pick solution A, pick solution B. And then, our process at the end is to give the employees the final choice. Right. And this final choice gives you the flexibility, predictability, and everything you need. This one does too. This meets the business needs. This one does too. This meets health and safety. This does too. Now let the employees do the pick, right? And that's the way we do the process. And at the end, we're explaining both options to the employees. And if 70% pick this and 30% pick this, at least these guys knew how we got there, right? And it's probably not too far off from what they wanted anyway, because it's all gray areas, right? So, and maybe it fixed. I didn't get the rotation I wanted. I wanted the 7-day break. I've only got a 3-day break, but I did get the flexibility piece, or I got the predictability piece. So that's kind of how we get there. And employees are usually pretty good. There's always somebody's upset, right? We call them. Every plant has a couple of these people. We call them affectionately the buttheads, right? Everybody's got some buttheads, and the butthead is the guy that with the first meeting I have, stands up on the soapbox and yells at me and tells me something. By the fourth meeting, I already know he's going to stand up on the soapbox. I'm like, all right, Jerry, what do you got to say? Right.
Yeah.
And that guy doesn't actually care what schedule it is. He just wants to stand up on the soapbox. Right.
Wants to be heard. Right.
Yeah.
Wants to be heard. And so, what we want to do, though, is focus on getting something that makes sense for everybody. And then we share, I think we're really, really open. We share results all the time. So I share, when we survey everybody, we take all the information that people gave us. So, for example, this plant I'm working in, they were really verbose. They had a lot to write. Everything they write down on a piece of paper, we type up and we give back to everybody. We take out any expletives and any people's names. When you're there, and you do hear some crazy things, but if you're there, I know Jerry said this because Jerry says this to me in the break room every day, but there's no name on it, right? And it's amazing what people will tell you if you listen. And it's not just what they say, but also the data. Okay, this is how many people wanted the big break, how many wanted the short break, wanted the 10-hour shift, wanted the 8-hour shift. We get that information out to everybody, share it, and they see how we build the solutions in the process. Nothing's hidden. And usually what I tell people is, if I work with 100 people in a plant, look, 100 of you are smarter than me and my other consultant. It's two of us. I don't care how smart we are. There's 102 of us together is smarter. Tell me what the solutions are. And often we can find kernels from what people tell us to help build a solution. Because in the end, it's theirs. It's not Coleman's or the chemical companies. It's yours. It's what you guys are going to work on. And for me, the success really is at my favorite part is going back to the clients afterwards. And I can't tell how many stories I've gone to back to a client 6 months, a year later. We do a resurvey of the employees, or sometimes I'll just do a company will ask me to come in and do a check or something, whatever, what's going on. Yeah. And the stories I have are, by the way, I'm rambling. Can I tell one or
no,
two?
Please. No,
it's good.
Good. You're a great storyteller.
Yeah.
So I give you a couple of them. One, probably my favorite one is I was working at this cell phone plant in Monterrey, Mexico, with my partner, and we were down there, and we changed schedules, and they had this schedule where half the plant worked every weekend, and we changed the schedule so everybody shared on the weekends. When I walked in 6 months later, and it was mostly women, a lot of grandmas, older women putting these cell phones together. I walked in, you would have thought I was Mick Jagger. It was, they left their positions and they came and they grabbed me and they're hugging me.
Right.
And they're saying things in Spanish. That's Spanish, my first language, in Spanish to me, thank you. Before you came here, I was dead to my grandchildren. I never saw them. Now they spend every other weekend with their grandmother. I have grandchildren. They have a grandmother, and and tears coming out of their eyes. It's just unbelievable. People, they knew I was coming. Somebody baked us like a little cake. It's like unbelievable stories you hear from people. I was at I went into a manufacturer in Columbus, and there we put an 8-day break in once every 7 weeks. And they have this rotation. It's mostly 12-hour shifts, actually 12 and 8. It's a pretty interesting schedule. Fits in with this group. So they asked me to come in, and I go to the warehouse, and I open the door, and I look, and all of a sudden I see this forklift on the other side of the warehouse. And this guy looks at me, and his eyes go big. And he jumps in the forklift, and he drives straight at me, right? Like, Billy, I'm from Jersey. I know he's going to run me over, right?
Yeah.
He jumps out of the forklift, and I can see he's just agitated. He reaches to his back pocket. Knife or gun, I'm dead, right? That's all I'm thinking, right? And I run out of here. What am I supposed to do? And he pulls out like his wallet. He has one of these wallets that goes, and like the pictures go.
Yeah.
And he's got all these pictures, and he can't even speak. He's so excited. He's like, Frank, I got my first 8-day break, and I took my kid sharking off of Cape Hatteras. Look, and he's showing me pictures of him and his kid fishing, and he's so excited, because he never would have been able to do that. Before I got there, he was working at least 6 days a week, and usually working at least one Sunday every week. So and here's a guy now that just is so excited, and that translates to everything he does, right? He's excited with the company. He helps turnover. He works hard. He wants the company to succeed. It's a huge win-win from a business perspective, certainly an employee perspective, from a health perspective, he's healthier. And to me, I feel like, God, because that could be, my family's all shift workers. That's my cousin, right? That's my nephew right there. When I look at these, and before, and what did I do other than just kind of unlock the ability for them to change, right? Unlock the ability for them to go ahead and do something different. And it's hard. I mean, I have another client that it's a glass plant in Pennsylvania, and they had talked to Dr. Coleman like 15 years ago, and they were convinced they were going to change schedules. But you know what? We can do it ourselves, right? We don't need these consultants. So for 12 years, every other year, they went through a process where they had a team develop an option and they would vote on it. And every year it failed, right? 12 years I guess 6 times over 12 years. The plant manager finally calls me up and goes, Frank, all right, I'm done. You're coming in here to fix this, right? And so luckily I got a chance to do that project. And I went there, and that's the one where we got 92% of the people to vote the scheduling, where they couldn't get 50%. We got 92%. Why? Because I didn't develop it in some hole and said, what do you guys think about this, right? I said, tell me, do you want to work a lot of days in a row or fewer days in a row? Well, I want to see the schedule. No, just tell me that piece. Do you want 8-hour shifts? I want to learn these little things that are important to you, and I'm going to build it from there, right? Kind of, as opposed to saying, here's the answer, pick this one or this one, right? Which was always negative. At the end of that project, there's a local Elks Club, and the guy who was the kind of one of the lead employees was a member of the Elks Club. So we ended up having this giant party at the Elks Club, which I guess a bunch of the employees members. I could not buy a drink for myself. They had to drive me back to my hotel. And it was the spouses that wanted to talk to me because they were excited about.
Yeah.
Think there. It's because they were excited about, hey, I'm going to see my husband's going to be home. My wife's going to be home. The kids are going to have, this is unbelievable. Yeah. They were so excited about it. They want to talk about aspects of how great it was working. It was such an exciting project to see that and see people actually change. Every once in a while I'll have somebody come up to me and say, thanks for changing schedules. You saved my marriage. I mean, what's that worth?
Wow.
Right. And that's the kind of stuff that you're working 6 or 7 days a week. You're either you don't like your wife or, or husband or it's a hard thing to do. Not to say people don't make it work, but wow, if I can get people to tell me what fits in with their lifestyles and we can make that go together, I'm in. Oh, sorry, I rambled.
No, dude,
great.
Oh my God, I wish you could have kept going, Frank. That was magic. Oh my God. All right, Damon.
I know.
Frank on our show. So it's lunchtime here in Eastern time zone. So I like to say we're going to just take a little moment of silence. We're just going to savor what you just dropped, that bomb that you just dropped on us. So there's so much unpack right there.
Yeah.
All right. First off, I want to share this. If you are under the age of 30 years old, he said a name, Mick Jagger. Please Google it. He was a rock star. I saw the Stones live in 1980 something, and so my hero Mick Jagger. So thank you for the Mick Jagger reference. But if you're under 30, you might have to. Forgot about that. There's a lot to unpack here, and so I'm gonna pull up a couple comments.
Yeah,
love how you help them build your own solution by listening. Diane, building balance in employees' lives is huge. To be able to present in your family's lives is so impactful. To do it, be successful with employment is a dream to many. A reason why women leave the workforce to raise children because they can't find the balance. I tell you, this is just what a great conversation, Frank. A couple of things I want to unpack right here. Okay. First off, when you think about, your superpowers, what you guys do, I mean, what an admirable service that you provide to your clients, to your employees, at the Elks Club, at the, this gentleman, I'm just picturing this guy driving up to you on the forklift, just look at the lives that you're changing.
Yeah.
And just, again, from the time I met you to this kind, this is not my wheelhouse. This is a little bit new for me. You're selling a couple of things, in my opinion, you're selling trust. You're coming into this company like this, after 12 years, they found like, we need help. We can't do this on our own. Frank, could you come in and help us? And look at the trust that they had in you, that when you come in, you change. And it's just by looking at things differently that they're just so close to it that they just can't see it. I mean, that's what Coleman sells, is like, you sell trust, right? You sell trust. Efficiency of time, improvement of lives. I mean, look at what you guys are doing for the market.
It is, and a lot of it is the trees and the forest, right? You can't see the forest because you're so far inside the trees. But trust is a big thing. One thing I did learn at the Naval Academy is about integrity, right? And there is no half truth. There's no half lie. Is that me?
You're good. You're good.
Okay, there's no half truth, no half lie. It's all about being honest with people. And so we tell them things and we show them stuff, or they'll give us information when they give us something back. Every once in a while, somebody will write something really squirrely, and they're like, "These guys will never type this up and send it back." And, oh yeah, we do, right? We're honest. We're just gonna let's do it. So you have to kind of earn that trust a little bit in the process. It doesn't happen up front.
Right.
You know, I like to think people I know people are really from Missouri, right? We're all show me people, right? I don't trust it all immediately, right? So,
Right.
people from Jersey, it's all in Long Island. It's all,
You got it. You need to earn that.
Show them. If you say, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and you keep showing them, they can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Right. The hardest part about change is actually, having people figure out how to step in that dark room. Because it's the devil that I know is better than the devil I don't know. And that's the angel I don't know is worse than the devil I know.
Right.
And so there's always fear, what are you trying to do? The company's trying to take some money from us or whatever it is.
Right.
Once you get through that and you explain it, you have to make that connection with people. Any good change requires connection. And I'm blessed. Luckily, I don't do as many projects because I tend to be the guy doing things like this and running around working with executives and selling the next one. But I'm blessed to work with a really bunch of great consultants that they believe what I do. They're smarter than I am, and they believe what I do as far as we're doing good change. And we talk about this. We live and breathe schedules, which is sort of funny.
Right.
These stories matter, and affecting people's lives matter. And I think that's important.
So I'm going off script for a second here, Frank. I want to go back to your Navy career, and you talked about, I think you said the name was Admiral Lyons. Because the other big takeaway for me today, that trust and how you're changing lives. And number 2, leadership. It takes leadership to earn that trust, right? And so again, share like your Navy experience, maybe the mentors, if I have that name correct, Admiral Lyons. How does your Navy experience, and like how do you coming in as a leader and helping again, whether executives, folks in the C-suite, or folks on the floor, union shop, whatever. Talk about like your leader. So see if there's somebody new. Again, that person that didn't know who Mick Jagger was, shame on them, but say they're starting out their career, maybe they're in their 20s or 30s, and they would look up to a guy like you, or right this moment they're having a mentoring moment with a guy with your acumen, your experience, your expertise, your passion. What would you share for that younger person on any leadership tips, how they can have success like this?
It's about a lot there. I think that I think the first thing is you got to find someone to work for. You got to find somebody that really can push you, not somebody that's nice to you and coddles you, right? Because one thing about John Lyons, he wasn't nice to me, but he was actually took care of me and taught. Right. But when I say nice, it wasn't that he said things
I get it.
He just I don't care if you got to go to sleep. I don't care if your wife's waiting on the pier. You got to get this done. It's not a choice, right? And so he really pushed the people that push you the hardest. You learn from, that whole Genghis Khan. I'm not sure it's Genghis Khan. Maybe it's Nietzsche. That which doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Sure.
It's those moments that make you stronger, and attaching yourself to a leader that can push you that far. If you haven't been pushed that far, if you've been coddled the whole time, Jack Welch used to say he doesn't want people that always succeed. You got to fail. Yeah. You got to have somebody that pushes you up against the wall, because we learn from our failures. We don't learn from our victories, right? It's easy. Victory is easy. Right. Yeah. How do you pick yourself up and do that? And I think you have to go find those people if they're not in your life. If your boss is really easy to you, you got to push them. Maybe you can push your boss to be harder on you, right? Because you have to learn that about yourselves, because life is not easy. We learn that, at home. Our kids are not easy as we raise kids, as we go through all the, the different parts of growing up. I'd also turn to when I look at like leadership, I get a lot by reading, right? And it's amazing what you learn from, different people. Like I like General Petraeus. I know he ended up getting knocked out from the Gulf War, and listening to what he had to say. Colin Powell, his view on leadership, and it matters. And leadership is not a military thing only. It's Jack Welch, an amazing leader who ran GE for many years. You don't have to just be in the military. I mean, I think one of the greatest leaders right now, I gotta be careful about this, is the Pope, right? Where the Pope taught, not the current one, but the one before, where he talked about the reverse pyramid, right? Where the leader doesn't sit on the top of the pyramid rests on the leader. right? And your job is to work up,
Nice.
right? Servant leadership, right? Serve the people above you and do whatever you can to make their lives easier. Because if you take care of them, they'll take care of you. So those are, you don't have to be a Catholic to read the Pope's thing, right? But it's definitely interesting to talk about servant leadership and hear what people have to say. To me, that's what I think is important. And then just honesty, integrity, right? You got to care about what you're doing. If you don't care about what you're doing, find a new job.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm not sure if that helped you there. Kurt,
that was
for me there.
That's awesome.
Again, a great, appreciate everybody out there. Thank you for your service in the Navy. And of course, Diane, learning from failures, best learning, available. So Frank, this is, man, we ran over time. I appreciate it, man. I'm just captivated by this conversation. This is just a master class. And Damon, this is a topic that we have not covered. We don't typically go here. This was such an honor and privilege to connect with Frank. So again, guys, we're here with Frank Pereira, Navy veteran, and just, what an amazing man. You want to follow him on LinkedIn. You want to connect with, check out his website, Coleman Consulting Group. And he is in just north of San Francisco. We're just sharing beautiful mountain biking out his way. Frank, just share with any of the folks, anywhere else that they can connect with you or any other words of wisdom before we close out the day today.
Yeah. So our website is actually, Coleman-consulting.com is our website. And that's a great place to connect. Rebecca is social media queen, definitely takes care of us out there. I'm always happy to come talk to people about anything. Get on the phone and we'll talk about whether there's a project there or not. I love talking. If I can make your life a little bit better, give us a call, set up some time, and I'd be happy to talk to you.
Awesome.
I really do want to thank the two of you guys, by the way. I wasn't sure what to expect the live. You guys are great. Can I go to Seattle next weekend? I'm thinking of going to Seattle next weekend.
There you go.
You can absolutely join us. And so what I'm going to do is I'm grabbing your website real quick, and I'm going to drop it right into the chat box for everybody.
Good.
Just to hop in there. And I'll tell you again, you guys have a lot of great information there. I've become friends with Rebecca through this time. And as you said, Frank, she is an absolute rock star. Great on social media, very passionate. And what's great, and before I let you go, just talk about your team real quick. Again, we talked about our dear buddy, Ron Higgs. I've had the honor and privilege of meeting Rebecca. Just talk about like the talent and the seasoned veterans that you have on your team that are out here changing lives. Sure.
We're a lot of ex-Navy vets. I actually laugh because I try and hire from the Naval Academy directly. But there's a kind of hidden group that knows us at about the 5 or 6 year point. If you're thinking about getting out, we certainly like those people. We have a lot of ex-Navy nukes, so a lot of submariners. I'm not one, but a lot of submariners. We do a couple Army people, and we even have a Marine. And we come in two flavors. Our core group, it's over a dozen of us as employees, and then we have like the COO, ex-COO of Marvin Windows. We've got senior VP for Miller Coors that'll come and, depending on the project, will bring that kind of experience. We do all our projects, typically teams of two, just so you can see two people. We're housed here is our corporate office. You're looking at, my office, and it stretches back over there. But this is where we bill and do marketing, and Rebecca's office is kind of down over there. But really, we're all over the country today. So we're living that dispersed group. So we have people in Florida. Texas is our second biggest area. Georgia, because we want our people out there so they can get close to the clients and be close. So that's who we are. I'm blessed, like I say, to work with amazing group of people. And
awesome.
I tell you, man, what a great career, what a blessing. And do you thank your wife on a regular basis for pointing out that one ad in the San Francisco? What a
I think no doubt on that one.
We've been married a long time. Nothing makes her happy. That's it. She's so.
That's a great story. So, all right, guys, we'll wind down. Frank, I loved every second of this, man. Took tons of notes today. Boy, if you're catching this on replay, please connect with Frank. Man, just do yourself a favor. Just go back and just kind of just listen to this, especially for those of you, whether you're on, management, supervisor, you're on track to become a manager, supervisor, you're an entrepreneur, and if you have 3 employees, and whether they're remote or you're in your office, boy, there was just golden nuggets here from Frank on how to just be that servant leader. What a masterclass this was, Frank. So, dude, thank you. God bless you. We appreciate you. And we just wish you continued success. Thank you for your service. Thank you how you provide for veterans a great place of
Yeah.
employment. And, you know, even with the Army Navy, now you guys, maybe during the Army Navy game, maybe you're on separate sides, but I admire that you even hired some of the Army guys as well. So
You got it. That's our equal opportunity employer. We hire Army guys.
hire some Army guys, right? Just to make them feel welcome. So, hey, we're going to close out the program today. So, Frank, thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. Guys, go out there, have an amazing, incredible week. Boy, we talked about integrity today. We talked about just doing the right thing, servant leadership, and inspiration. Boy, what an inspiring. Damon, any last parting thoughts you have, my friend, on this? What a great jam session this was.
I'm not topping this one. I'm just going out, being good. Trying to do what I can do, man.
We're just going to
awesome.
We're going to close out. So, hey, just anybody out there, Damon's got Faces of Business on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah.
And Frank, you might have to come back and join Damon on Faces of Business to keep this party going. I know you've got Nicole Donnelly tomorrow, I believe.
Yeah.
We have a great jam session. I'm going to be coming to you guys live from the Alaska Manufacturing Extension Partnership on Friday. So, Damon, we have a great little session planned for that. And so, guys, have a great week. Frank, hang out with us 1 second and be someone's inspiration, just like Frank was for us today. Just go out there, be someone's inspiration, and we will see you soon. Thank you. All right.